It's 10 o'clock, and I believe we are ready to begin the joint fiscal committee meeting of November 18th. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Senator Gray. Thank you, Senator Susie. Okay. All those in favor, please. All those in favor, please raise their hand. Opposed? Abstain? 3 abstentions. Okay. Representative Emmerich, I believe you are proposing that we take FIS 22-348 off the table.
Yes, Madam Chair, and replace it with 22-348 as we submitted.
Is there okay. Taking FIS 22-348 off the table and replace it with 22-348
Revised.
Correct.
revised.
The
Okay.
replacement item for 348, correct.
Okay. Oh, yes, a replacement item for 348. Thank you, Representative Erf.
Who made the motion? I did.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hello, planet Earth. All right.
Good morning, Tracy. Is there anything you'd like to say?
No, actually, there were some revisions that I think bring the proposal more in line. That's about it.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Okay, 22-348 is revised. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
No.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the vote is 9-1.
the vote
favor.
being 9-1, we have taken this off the table and replaced it with with the revised 22-348. And is there any discussion on the revision? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Move the
on
item.
Second.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Representative Erf made the motion to approve. Representative Leachman seconded.
All right, this is 348 replacement. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Morse.
Yes.
Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0 in favor.
thank you. The vote being 10-0, the motion passes.
Madam Chair, before we go any further, could I make a few comments?
Certainly.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Often, the committee will recognize people at the very end of our meetings, so we're losing at least 2 of the people that are here today, Senator Morse and Representative Umberger. And I don't know which one to start first and either praise or, but I'll start with Senator Morse. I became friendly with Senator Morse when he was chair of Senate Finance, and I was chair of Division 1. And he called me up on the phone and he said, you know, we need to speak about what Division One has done. So I guess was a little timid at the time because I heard a lot of tough things about Chuck Morris, but I ventured over to his office, and I guess you could say that he knows how many pencils are purchased every year in the state. His knowledge of the budget is incredible. Well, he went through ours in Division One, and I guess he didn't find any problems. So I thought, I guess I passed his grade. But over the years, we become friends. And on a personal note, I lost my son, and I received a call from Senator Morris, and he said, "I've got this beautiful dogwood tree, and I'm going to send a group of people over and plant it. So you better find a place. And my family and I would like to honor you and your son with a tree." And that just speaks to the gentleman sitting over there, and I'm going to miss him because oftentimes, or not often, but occasionally we'll disagree, and I'll get that look. Even got the look in the hall this morning because he saw something I'd said in the newspaper. So I'm going to miss him, and the state's going to really lose an incredible public servant, but I'm sure somebody will find a place for him. But he's certainly going to be missed, and I thank him for everything he's done for me and the state. And I'd like to move now to Karen Umberger, who I met years ago. She came over to Division One, and she was a rock. As soon as she got there, I learned that she had been a colonel in the Air Force, and she often kept me in line and some of the other members of the division. But losing Karen, who is one of the most ethical, thorough individuals I've ever had the privilege of knowing, is it's a tough day for, again, losing two very good people in state government. I just would like to say thank you to them for their service.
Thank you, Representative Leishman. I know that both Senator Morris and I truly appreciate your words. Thank you. Okay, moving now to the consent calendar. I have 3 items to take off consent. They are 22,399, 22,404, and 22,385. Are there any other items to come off consent? Seeing none, could I have a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent calendar? Thank you, Senator Gray and Senator Birdsall. Seconded.
Roll call on consent.
You're not on.
Okay. This is on the consent calendar. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf,
Yes.
Representative Leishman,
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Birdsall, Senator Morris,
Yes.
Senator Gray,
Yes.
Senator Susi, Senator Khan,
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Vote being 10-0, the remainder of the consent calendar is approved.
Madam Chair, if I might, sorry, Mike Kane.
Oh.
What was the third item that was removed from consent? We got 399, 404, and
385.
385. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the regular calendar. If this is tab 10. You want me to do that first? Okay, all right. Tracy wants me,
Be easier.
Tracy would prefer that I go through the items that have been taken off the consent calendar. So we can do that. All right. The first item is 22,399 in tab, I don't know what, 5.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I don't know if you're going in order or not, but the first one, if you go in order, was 385.
Okay, would you,
Also on tab 5.
I have no problem.
I don't care either. I just didn't know.
Okay, 385, FIS 22,385 in tab 5.
Good morning, Nathan White, DHHS CFO.
Good morning, Trish Tilley, Director of the Division of Public Health Services.
Thank you both for being here.
Yes,
So-
Representative Irf,
Oh,
you
I'm
have a
sorry.
question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I start now?
Yes, you may.
My bad. Thank you both for being here. As I'm sure you're aware, I posed the question about parental consent as it relates to this fiscal note. And I have a question, and thank you for your responses to that, but I'd like to go a little deeper in that. So given that federal ESSA law, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act, requires, and this is a quote from that very long document, informed consent from the parent of each child who is under 18 years of age to participate in any mental health assessment or service, end quote. Wouldn't a more proactive approach on the part of DHHS be to actively encourage the people being trained to first get parental consent when there's any concern on the mental health of a child?
I think that that's accurate, and that certainly can be, if it is not currently part of that training, we can ensure that that's part of that.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
I'll move the item.
Oh, thank you. Irf and Lynn. I'm doing really well this morning.
Okay, this is 385. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Irf,
Yes.
Representative Leishman,
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Representative Senator Birdsell, Senator Morse, Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Gray,
Yes.
Senator Khan,
Yes.
Senator Umberger.
Yes, Representative.
Oh, well, you got a promotion today to the Little House. Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22,385 passes. We now turn to FIS 399, which is also in tab 5. Oh, welcome back.
I'm still here, and I'm also joined by
Hi, Ellen Lapointe, CEO at New Hampshire Hospital.
Okay. Someone had a question. Representative Leishman?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Good morning, Mr. White, and I'm sorry I didn't catch your name.
Point.
Thanks. If I recall, the tanks were supposed to be removed some time ago, and now that's being put off again. Is your thoughts that you will be bringing a request through the budget to remove these tanks? Again, I guess.
Yes, that would be our plan going forward.
And a follow-up question.
Certainly.
So I'm taking it not to ever assume, but there's no environmental risk by leaving those tanks in the ground. That's not an issue. It's just the abandoned tanks need to be removed?
Correct, yes, no environmental risk associated with the tanks.
Okay. Thanks so much. Thanks, Madam Chair. That's all I have. I'd move the item if there's not another question.
Okay, I have a
Madam Chair?
motion. Seconded by Senator Susie. Will the clerk please call the roll on, oh, another question?
Yeah, I shouldn't.
Might I ask another question, Madam Chair?
Sure.
After my botching the first time.
Yeah. I'm
Tha-
sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you just, so this was, as I recall, approved in the previous term, not the current term. And I'm just wondering why the 2+ year delay in even getting to the process, given that wasn't like you had to plan anything or do a design or anything. You're basically just taking out tanks and putting in new ones.
I think, I don't think it was in the, I think, so forgive me, I think that, it was more recent that we got the approval for the tanks.
Yeah, so in the attached to the item in front of you, we are actually this request is to amend a prior item, 22-162, that came before the committee this past spring. I believe it was at the May meeting, where we were accepting what was it, about $5.6 million of dish funding, and we had allocated funds to specific projects, and the underground oil tanks was one of those projects. And so here we're seeking to repurpose those funds to cover the additional increased construction costs. Did I answer your question?
Follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
But I thought that item that you referred to was actually talking about an item that had been previously budgeted in the prior term. Is that not correct?
The FIS 22-162, that item came before the committee because it did come outside of the budget.
Hadn't
Go ahead.
excuse me. I'll stop.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor by Representative Leishman, seconded by Senator Susie. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll on 399. Emmerich votes yes.
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Birdsell, Senator Morse, Senator Gray,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Khan,
No.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Oh, did I? Representative Leishman. My
Yes,
apologies.
sir.
We're
Madam Chair-
supposed to be organized in our last meeting of the
No,
year.
not
We're
so
not
far.
doing well.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9-1.
The vote being 9-1, FIS 399 passes. We now turn to FIS 22404 under tab 7.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to table 22404 for a special meeting on December 2nd.
Madam Chair, before we do that, may I
Just
be
a second. We can table it first, and then you can make your announcement.
Okay.
Okay. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Representative Leishman. Representative Lynn needs to make a statement.
Yes, thank you, Madam.
Yes. This is not a debate. This is simply a statement based on his involvement. Okay, just so it's clear for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make this disclosure pursuant to the General Court's Ethics booklet, Part 1, Section 7. And I do this not because I believe that I really have a conflict of interest, but nonetheless, out of an abundance of caution, I note that yesterday I filed a declaration of intent with respect to this matter. It arises out of the fact that there apparently is a dispute between some parties relating to the matter, one of the parties being Comcast. And I note for the record that I own and have owned for many years shares of Comcast common stock of approximately, as of yesterday, was 243 shares. Those shares represent a small percentage of the assets held by myself and my wife, and I do not believe that I have no question that it would not affect in any way my ability to fairly and impartially consider the matters related to this issue, nor do I believe that any person, any objective person fully informed of the facts could conclude otherwise. For those reasons, I intend to participate in the vote on this matter, and as I said, I have filed a written declaration of intent with the clerk of the House. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will the clerk please call the roll on FIS 404?
404 tabled until December 2nd. Emmerich votes yes. Representative
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall. Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Thank you very much. The vote being 10-0, this item is tabled, and we will have a special meeting on December 2nd to fully discuss this item. Okay, now can I go to the regular calendar? Thank you. Thank you. We now turn to tab 10. The first item on the agenda is FIS 22-395, the Department of Health and Human Services.
Good morning, Nathan White, CFO, DHHS.
Good morning. Are there any questions for Mr. White? Seeing none, could I have a motion? Representative Erf, do I have a second? Second by Representative Lynn. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll on 395. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22-395 passes. We now turn to FIS 22-392. This item was a change to a form for the YDC Center settlement. You have a copy of the change in your books. Are there any comments?
I
Seeing
would
none,
Move
could-
the item.
thank you, Representative Lynn. Do I have a second? Thank you, Senator Gray. Ready?
Okay.
All right,
Roll
please
call.
call the roll.
392. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes,
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
the vote being 10-0, FIS 22-392 is approved. Turning to tab 12. FIS 22-380 from the Office of the Governor. Go ahead. Would you please introduce yourself? You need, yep, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Amy Clark, and I'm with the Department of Education. I'm the administrator for school safety and facility management.
Good morning, Rob Buxton, Director, Homeland Security and Emergency Management.
Welcome. I have not met you before, so congratulations on your new job.
Thank you.
Are there any questions for either of the folks here? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Representative. Seconded by Senator Birdsall. By the way, not all go through this easy. I just want you to know that, and that this is only because it's your first time we allowed it to happen.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
This is your freebie. This is on 380. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie. Senator Khan. Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 380 passes. Thank you. We now turn to tab 13. FIS 22373 from Fish and Game. Yep, blah, blah, stop. We can't hear you because your mic's not on.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Fiscal Committee. My name is Lieutenant Robert Mancini with the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, Representative Leishman moves FIS 22373, seconded by Representative Emmerich.
Roll call on 373. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf,
Yes.
Representative Leishman,
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Birdsell, Senator Morse, Senator Gray,
Yes.
Senator Susie, Senator Khan,
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22373 passes. We now turn to FIS 22389, also from Fish and Game. Lieutenant, I see you have someone that has joined you.
Scott Mason, the Executive Director of Fish and Game.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept FIS 22389?
So moved.
Thank you, Representative Lynn, seconded by Senator Gray.
Roll call on 389. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf,
Yes.
Representative Leishman,
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Birdsell,
Yes.
Senator Morse, Senator Gray,
Yes.
Senator Susie,
Yes.
Senator Khan,
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22389 passes. Thank you both for coming in today. We now turn to tab 14, which is FIS 22391. Yes, welcome. Okay. That's all right. Just turn your microphone on and introduce yourself.
Yeah, good morning. My name is David King. I'm the Administrative Judge of the New Hampshire Circuit Court.
Are there any questions on FIS 22381?
Perfect timing.
Representative Lynn.
Yes. To either the Chief Justice or Justice King, am I understanding that you are submitting this for the purpose of us being aware of it, not to sort of bless it, so to speak? And I think I mean, personally, the reason for that is we really haven't had a chance to look at it in the underlying. We got the underlying report yesterday, and I haven't had a chance to really look at it. And the one thing that I mean, I have to say candidly, the one thing that at least raises a question in my mind is with regard to the circuit court, the need for 21 additional judicial officers. That, I mean, I don't have any question that you may need some additional circuit court judges. I don't have any question about that. 21 is, I guess I'd like to, if you're asking us to sort of say we agree with that, I think I wouldn't be prepared to do that now.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Gordon McDonald, Chief Justice. With me is the Administrative Judge of the Circuit Court, David King. We're here as required under RSA 490:11 to submit for the committee's approval a weighted caseload study. So we're here pursuant to the legislature's directive. the weighted caseload study, for the benefit of the members of the committee, is an evidence-based study based on a very a well-established methodology, and you know, be happy to react to the findings of the study, but it is something that we undertook in consultation with a national group that has done many of these studies, and the conclusions are what they are.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I guess what I guess all I'm sort of saying is I'm not, at least personally, I'm not prepared to sort of accept it at this point. I'm not. It may very well be be entirely appropriate to accept it. All I'm saying is I don't think I've had enough time, and I'm not sure if any of the other members of the fiscal committee have really had enough time to digest the full report to make a decision on it. Now, that's all I'm really saying.
Are there any further questions? I do have one question. When you submit your budget, which is coming up relatively soon, will you be including these new positions in your budget?
We have submitted the budget to the governor, and our budget does reflect what we learned from the weighted caseload study, but I will tell the committee it does not reflect all the positions that were set forth in the weighted caseload study.
Okay.
And just, if I may, Madam Chair, getting back to Representative Lynn's question, that specifically what the statute asks the committee to approve are any revisions to the weighted case values. So we're not, that's technically what you're approving, the revisions to weighted case values, and not necessarily the number of positions that those case values are suggesting are needed.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Okay. Thank you, Senator Susie. Seconded by Senator Birdsall. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call 391. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
No.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Morse.
That was a yes.
Yes. Okay. Good. Senator Gray.
No.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 8 yes, 2 no.
The vote being 8 in favor and 2 opposed, FIS 22-391 is approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee, and obviously please reach out to me or Judge King as you study the report, and be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you very much. We now turn to FIS 22-374 from the State Treasury. That is in tab 15.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Monica Municipality State Treasurer.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the treasurer? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Thank you. Motion by Senator Susie, second by Senator Khan.
Roll call 374. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall. Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Vote being 10-0, FIS 22-374 is approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Kane.
Sure. Just on that, we can get to it during the audits for release of the CAFR and all the annual reports. You do have 4 late items that you need to take up. You have 3 from the governor's office, the Gopher office, and you also have 1 from Employment Security and 1 from Administrative Services. So you probably want to take actions on those first. Before the audits are presented today, I'll have ask Representative Emmerich to make that motion to release the other reports.
Okay, so you'll release them all, okay.
Yes,
When
at
we,
that point.
when we do the audits.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
I was confused.
That was my fault. Thanks.
Okay. We now move to the informational items. And I would like to say that FIS 22-375 from the Department of Health and Human Services was an excellent report, and I appreciate it. I also felt that FIS 22-376 from the Department of Health and Human Services was also a very good report. So if we could now go to the late items. If I can find them. Good, they're in your manila folder. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I guess I must have left mine in the other room.
This is a day for the books.
Yeah. Okay. Our first item on the late items is FIS 22-423 from the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery. Please.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
And I'm sorry, which item is this now? 423?
423. This is emergency rental assistance.
Okay. So quick explanation. So,
please.
Thank you. So this item is related to a situation that we have been dealing with the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. As you know, and we've discussed in this forum many times, there are resources that have been provided to this to the state from the federal government. We have been spending those resources pretty quickly over the last couple of years in with a subaward agreement through New Hampshire Housing. As we now are seeing the end of the funding that is available to the state under this program, we have a number of people who are at this point being temporarily housed in hotels and motels in the state. What we have in front of you today is a request to fund from the state's Fiscal Recovery Fund in the amount of $20 million to continue to provide housing for those individuals through April 1st, excuse me, for individuals and couples, and through June 15th for families. We feel that this is the population that is in the most needy situation going into the winter months. The timing in terms of the availability of resources under ERA and the diminishing amounts that are available to that is not of our preference. We have over the last couple of months made requests from U.S. Treasury in excess of $100 million worth of reallocated funds under the ERA program to continue funding the full program. But to date, we have received somewhere just above $4 million worth of funds for that reallocation. This is an opportunity for us to take care of the people that are in the most needy situation as we go into the winter months, keep them in a housing situation. We will continue to work with those individuals through New Hampshire Housing and the CAPS with services that will be provided to them to help them transition to a more permanent housing situation and also get them access to other services that are available at the state and federal level. Those have been underway since the inception of this program and will continue. So a combination of $20 million for that purpose. And in addition, I believe there's a separate item for the services that will go with those programs. So that's, I guess, the quick overview, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Representative Leishman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for your presentation, Commissioner. So I believe we've got about 7,500 families, and I don't know what that equates to as far as individuals, and clearly I support keeping them out of the winter cold, but what concerns me, I understand that we're paying as much as $350 or more dollars to hotels for rooms. Are you able to control some of those costs? Paying those higher rates would certainly eat into your funding pretty
Absolutely.
quickly.
And thank you, Representative. Our goal with this round of funding that we are asking for now, the 20 million, we are going to set sort of an overall goal of $200 as a cap for the per night cost of this type of housing. I think, though, having said that, we are going to have some instances where we might see in the Mount Washington Valley, for instance, where the cost of a hotel room during February vacation week is a higher amount, and we don't want to put anyone in the position of going in and out of a housing situation. And so we're going to build in an ability to have some flexibility. But then again, when we get into the March and April shoulder season, we would expect to see that number decrease as in terms of the availability of hotel rooms for other people than the ones that we're housing under the program.
Follow up?
Yes.
Thanks, Madam Chair. It would seem to me if you're filling up these hotels and motels during the off season that rate should carry forward consistently because you're providing that funding to keep those rooms full, even though there may be a week, in the February school vacation. I would think it'd be advantageous for those facilities to have their rooms full for the entire winter.
Yep.
And keep the rate pretty constant. That would be certainly my hope.
I absolutely agree with that, but I think we can't foresee that there would not be a situation where we would have to have a hotel that is willing to switch people out. I don't necessarily want to put ourselves in that position. I want to be able to continue to have them house those individuals for a period of time where there goes above a loose cap, let's say, a flexible cap. But overall, yes, our goal is to keep the overall spend rate on the program at 200 or less.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further? Thank you, Senator Khan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And following on the same tangent, who is going to set that rate, and is that the CAPS that are going to be responsible for whatever rate cap the Gopher sets for reimbursement?
Yes, Senator. So that's what's happening right now. So bear in mind that this is not necessarily a whole new thing. There are people who are currently in hotels and they're being paid for under the ERA program. This is an extension of that program with guidelines that will include an effort to keep the per night rate under $200.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
Move the item.
Thank you, Representative Leishman. Second, Senator Khan. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 423. Hamrick votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie. Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22-423 passes. Turn now to FIS 22-224, also from the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery, dealing with housing stability services. 424.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this item, as I mentioned a moment ago, is in concert with the funding that we've requested for the hotel situation. This is housing stability services. We will be working with New Hampshire Housing and the Community Development Finance Authority and subawards to continue in large part programs that they already have operating that will allow us to expand and maintain service to these communities in our hotel and motel over the course of the winter to put them in a position for success for finding more permanent housing. There are within there two primary programs that deal with outreach and education to landlords, and then other programs to make sure that these populations are able to get connected to existing financial services, but also for mental health and SUD treatment. The total is $3.3 million.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Senator Gray, seconded by Senator Susie. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 424. Hamrick votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie. Senator Khan. Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22-424 passes. We now turn to FIS 22-425. Also from the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This final item is around $2.2 million. This is a reallocation under the ERA2 program. So as you heard me mention before, we've received total reallocations around $4.4 million. This is 2.2 of that U.S. Treasury has provided. This funding will go directly into the existing ERA program. It is not exclusive to the hotel motel funding that we just discussed. So this is just merely a reallocation. There were one or two items that you passed under consent that do the same thing for ERA and ERA2. This one just came in just late, so we wanted to make sure that we got it through. So this will go into the total pot of funding that's available under the existing ERA program.
Are there questions? I do have one.
Yes, ma'am.
With this additional funding, will the rental assistance go beyond 29 December or 31 December, whatever that date is?
I think what this does really is it gives us much more of a cushion in that time period. I don't recall the weekly amount that is being spent at this point, but $2 million is going to get us, I think, a couple extra days. We're doing about $5 million a week in rental subsidy right now.
So then what happens? What happens to the families that we're providing rental assistance to?
As we've just discussed, the people that are in that situation in hotels and motels,
I'm not talking about the hotels and motels. I'm talking
people
about
that are in other programs where they're in a leased apartment or in there some other situation, we've been rotating people on and off that program since the inception of this program. So people have either time limitations as to how much time they can actually are eligible for under the program, or they'll cycle in and out of a given apartment. So in all of those cases, it is a bit of a constant transition. But also in each of these cases, the CAPS and New Hampshire Housing are continuing to provide these services to help people find housing. And in a lot of cases, that's why they're leaving the program, is because they are able to find a location somewhere in the state and not have to be on the subsidy program. But I think the fact is that at this stage, the rental subsidy program, not related to hotels and motels, is winding down at this point.
So, if I might, on the rental assistance side of it, are the CAPS expecting people to have to move out of apartments and into hotels and motels?
That is we're not going to, I don't think we'll see a lot of that type of activity. We have other programs that we have in place for individuals and families that are caught in a situation where they have either eviction issues or other mental issues, whether it's through funding that we have provided and you've approved through the court system to mediate those situations in combination with the support services. I think given the resources that we have available to us to continue to assist these families, that's really at the peak of the activity right now, is continuing to provide those services.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Representative Leachman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just have one, I hope, simple question. Your explanation is a little lean, and how many people are involved in these programs, like your supportive staff, and what's the cost of supporting these programs on the state or on the federal grant?
So this program is administered by New Hampshire Housing, and then they work with the CAP agencies. In terms of the specifics on the administrative costs, I might ask Chase to give you that.
Sure. Chase Hageman, Deputy Director at Gopher. That's a good question, Representative. The contract overall for rental assistance has effectively a cap on administrative costs. I believe it's 8.5% total, split between New Hampshire Housing and the CAPS. And then when it comes to the supportive services, there's a similar administrative cost that's built into those contracts. But as you might expect, a lot of those kind of services are very personnel intensive. So a lot of it is staff costs to work in the case management setting specifically.
Thanks. Thanks.
Are there any, Senator Khan?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just how many families are currently being served by this program? I mean, with 1 month left to go, I'm sure they're going to be working hard, but to make sure that they don't hit the cliff. But how many people are we talking about? How many families?
So, Senator, it's also a good question. Overall, the program has served over 25,000 households. From what I recall of the numbers, that's typically around, I think, 2,500 families a week benefiting from this program. And then there are several hundred that are also in hotels and motels at this point, which is why this funding is coming before you today. In terms of a specific set number every week, it depends, especially as New Hampshire Housing and the CAPS continue to process the applications that have come in as of the application pause on October 21st. So right now, it's less about weekly, quote, burn rate, but assessing the final population of applications that have come in. From what I recall, that was the average number of households on a weekly basis that were benefiting in some way from the program.
Are there further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Representative Lynn, Moves Senator Gray, seconds.
Roll call on 425. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsell.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22-425 passes. Thank you very much. We'll now turn to FIS 22-426 from the Department of Employment Security.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Richard Lavers, Deputy Commissioner at the New Hampshire Department of Employment Security.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Justin Cutting with the Department of Safety's Division of Fire Standards and Training and EMS.
Okay. Would you mind going through and just explaining what you're asking for?
Absolutely, Madam Chair. So the request before the committee is to use $2.5 million approximately of state fiscal recovery funds for a targeted workforce recruitment program for our emergency transportation providers in the state. The providers we're talking about are all licensed with the Department of Safety. It includes your ambulance providers. It includes your public fire departments. It includes some emergency medical service units that are in the private sector as well. So our about 300 employers statewide that are licensed to provide this service for emergency and non-emergency transportation. And what we're seeking to do is to add additional emergency medical technicians to their ranks. Currently, we have about 2,600 EMT certified and licensed individuals in the state. The Department of Safety has identified a shortage in that field, which then has a compounding effect throughout the healthcare delivery system. So when we don't have enough EMTs to be providing transportation for individuals not only to get to our healthcare facilities in an emergency situation, that's a problem. But it is also a problem when we don't have sufficient EMTs to provide that transportation between facilities. So from a hospital to a rehabilitation facility or long-term care facility. So this program would address that workforce issue in three ways, very targeted way. It would first provide funding to those licensed employers to pay for the cost associated with EMT certification and licensure for individuals seeking that basic level of EMT certification, and then would also pay that cost associated with certification for advanced EMT as well. We would also provide funding to those employers to provide some relief on some of the wage pressures. Current practice right now is that such an employer would be reluctant to hire an individual prior to obtaining that basic level of EMT certification. This program would provide 50% wage reimbursement for those licensed employers during the 4 weeks of employment while they are obtaining that basic level EMT certification and licensure. And as a third component, this program would also provide a recruitment and retention incentive to individuals, try to add additional people, again, who have that basic level of EMT certification, and provide them with a $1,000 payment upon completion of that EMT certification and sticking with that employer for 6 months. So we're trying to do this in a very targeted way with these $2.5 million of state fiscal recovery funds. However, we do feel that targeting this particular group within the healthcare delivery system will provide some much needed relief for these emergency transportation services throughout the healthcare system.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Representative Erf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the training time period for which you're paying the wages or half the wages, my understanding is the training programs tend to run more like 3 months, not 4 weeks.
So we're being very recognizing that we have a limited amount of dollars here. We're looking at providing that relief for the 4 weeks and looking at what the current constraints are and talking with that employer community. We feel that will provide sufficient relief on the wage side to allow that that hire prior to what is current practice right now. So it is limited to that 4 weeks while that individual is engaged in training. In terms of the customary length of that training, I could turn over here to Director Cutting to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Representative. So some employers will, their intent is to go out, recruit a group of individuals to receive this training and then
Excuse me, could you?
Yep.
Yeah,
My
that'd be better.
apologies. Certain employers intend to go out and recruit individuals to become employees, and then they are going to sponsor a specific condensed class, which puts it into that 4 or 5 week time frame. The typical time frame is 3 to 4 months, but that is a nights and weekend type of program, which I don't believe would fall under the wage reimbursement portion, but would serve a lot of the small communities throughout the state.
Are there further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Senator Birdsall moves to accept and Senator Susie seconds. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 426. Henrik votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Representative Birdsall.
Yes.
Senator, I'm sorry. Senator Morse. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 22-426 passes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we now turn to FIS 22-427 from the Department of Administrative Services.
Hi. Charlie Arlinghouse, I'm the Commissioner of Administrative Services. I'll try to be brief. First of all, sorry it's late. This came up kind of last minute. As you know, our function on recruitment and retention is essentially ministerial. So a small number of people have these sort of payments throughout the state, none of whom work for me. Just throw that out there. In looking at the implementation of this program, a couple of the agencies who have the larger bonus programs found anomalies. And the urgency is dictated by winter maintenance. As you may be aware, winter is essentially upon us, and we need people to plow. There was a provision in the original language that excluded people who were out on leave, out on an extended leave. It was determined operationally, and the departments will have details if you really need them, but essentially, you know, let's say you're out because you sprained your ankle and you're off on workers' comp for 2 weeks. Do we really not want you? Do we not want to retain you plowing if you're just coming back from maternity leave and you're missing out on the first month or so? We still want you on board plowing a truck or whatever it is that we need done. And so in doing so, this is essentially tweaking the language so there's not an automatic exclusion of a certain group of people who may have legitimate reasons for being out, and it allows a proration of the amounts for those people. And that, in discussions with the other agencies that are in this program, safety and corrections, et cetera, common language was identified, and then I know I got it Tuesday, and you gratefully accepted it coming forward. But it just makes the program more operational, and it eliminates a minor glitch and allows to prorate.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Commissioner Arlinghouse? Yeah,
how's
Representative Emmerich.
How are the programs working? Are we retaining people? Is it seeming to work?
I think we are. I think the proof. I think it's too early to declare success because this is sort of the front end. What we really want to do is keep people through for example, winter maintenance through the winter season. And I can tell you the answer to that when winter's over and people didn't leave. And so I think it's too early to say.
Are there any further questions? I noticed Commissioner Shaheen nodding her head. So
That's good. I'm scared to look backwards.
Oh, okay. Only forward looking today. Okay. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept? Senator Gray, seconded by Senator Susie.
Roll call on 427. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Flynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall. Yes. Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie. Yes. Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
The vote being 10-0, FIS 427 passes.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, if I could be inappropriate for a second? I'm speaking for myself, but I suspect most agencies would agree with me on this. I was distressed to hear that you were taking a sabbatical. From the standpoint of those of us on this side of the table, I would say that your unfailing professionalism, that your knowledge of operational details, and your general good cheer has made fiscal a pleasure. And so I appreciate it and thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments before we get to the audits. And this has to do with the information items so that folks understand that at least I have gone through and read them and am, recognize when something is good. I was glad to see that our health insurance is still solvent and going in the right direction. I also in Department of Administrative Services, the quarterly status report. I would like to say that I did have some questions. The folks from LBA followed up with the agencies, and I would like to remind all of the agencies that it's much better to provide the information up front than it is to provide the information on the back end. But anyhow, thank you for that report. Okay. Oh, yeah, probably.
Madam Chair, I move that today's audits, as well as any additional FY 2022 annual financial reports which become available prior to the end of the calendar year, be accepted, placed on file, and released to the public in the usual manner. I think
Seconded by Senator Gray.
And we need to have a vote. Okay. This is the vote on accepting reports. Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Stepped out.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Birdsall. Senator Gray.
Yes.
Senator Susie.
Yes.
Senator Khan.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 8-0.
Vote being 8-0, the motion passes. Okay. Did I forget something? No, we'll do it at the next one. Okay, my friends from the audit division, I understand you have all kinds of exciting things for us today that we can hardly wait on.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Steve Smith, Director of Audits for the LBA. We're here to present, first of all, the financial audit that we did on the Department of Business and Economic Affairs for the 9 months ended March 31st. Christine Young, a senior manager with our office, was the in charge on this audit. She will present our report. And also joining us from the department is Commissioner Caswell. Will be available for questions.
Good morning, Madam Chair
Good
and
morning.
members of the committee. For the record, my name's Christine Young, and I will be presenting the report on our financial audit of the Department of Business and Economic Affairs for the 9 months ended March 31st, 2022. This report is presented in 2 sections. The first section is the management letter section, prepared by the auditors, and it contains our report on internal control and compliance, along with 16 audit observations. And the second section, the financial section, contains our independent auditor's report, followed by the department-prepared financial statement and notes. You will not find a section in this report containing the current status or prior audit findings, since the department is a fairly new state agency established on July 1st, 2017, and this is the first time our office has conducted an audit of the department. The focus of my presentation will be on the observations and recommendations. However, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding any part of this report. If you turn to the table of contents, the report includes 8 internal control comments, 2 of which are material weaknesses, and 8 state compliance comments. The department concurs fully or in part with all the findings. There are 7 findings marked with an asterisk, suggesting that legislative action may be required. The discussion of the observations and recommendations begins on page 3. Observation number 1 is a material weakness.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
On the, you're recommending legislative action.
Yes.
What do we have? 2 more days? On the House side, and we have a little bit longer on the Senate side. Okay, but if something requires legislative action, Commissioner, you need to work with someone on the Senate side to get that moving forward so that we don't end up forgetting it. So
I won't forget.
Oh, yeah, okay, fine. All right. I'm sorry to interrupt,
Oh,
but
that's okay.
but I wanted to make sure that I got that out so that
Sure.
we're not running into a problem that can be blamed on the legislature.
Okay.
Thank you.
Observation number 1 is a material weakness, and it discusses risk assessment, which is one of the 5 recognized components of internal control. We recommended the department establish and document a formal risk assessment process and review for indicators of risk exposure. Observation number 2 on page 4 is also a material weakness, and it reports the department did not pay invoices in a timely manner, resulting in non-compliance with state policies and a $1.2 million expenditure posting error in New Hampshire First. Observation number 3 on page 6 discusses the need to perform and document a review and approval procedure for certain federal drawdowns processed by the department. In observation number 4 on page 6, we recommended the department strengthen controls over the processing of transfers of personnel expenditures to ensure the recording and reporting of complete and accurate financial information. In observation number 5 on page 8, we noted the department was not in full compliance with state policy or the provisions of MOUs it entered into with certain state agencies. Observation number 6 on page 9 reports on weaknesses noted over the collection of revenues in the department's Bureau of Visitor Services. In observation number 7 on page 11, we noted the department has not established an IT plan, a disaster recovery plan, or a business continuity plan, which are critical to the department's financial accounting and reporting process. Observation number 8 on page 12 discusses instances where employees had New Hampshire First system access permissions that were outside the scope of their job responsibilities. Page 13 is the start of the state compliance comments. Observation number 9 reports the department has not established a state development plan as required by statute. The plan is to identify critical issues facing the state, determine the state's priorities and limited resources, and collaborate with others on the physical, social, and economic growth and development of the state, among other things. The next 3 observations, observations number 10 through 12, starting on page 14, report on compliance issues that are frequently reported on in our financial audits, such as the need to adopt administrative rules, non-compliance with statements of financial interests, and the need to file statutory reports. In observation number 13 at the top of page 18, we note the department has not established the broadband matching grant initiative according to statute effective July 1st, 2021, to provide matching grants to broadband providers and others to improve broadband availability across the state. Observation number 14 on page 18 reports the department has not implemented the New Hampshire College Graduate Retention Incentive Partnership Program, established in statute to raise awareness of an incentive available to college graduates. Observation number 15 on page 20 discusses the COVID-19 Micro Enterprise Relief Fund, which was established in statute on June 25th, 2021, to protect the economic health and sustainability of New Hampshire entities with 10 or fewer employees, known as micro enterprises. The department has not implemented or used the fund. Lastly, observation number 16 on page 20 describes some housekeeping issues regarding outdated statutes that should be reviewed to ensure alignment with the department's organizational chart and accounting and reporting structure. The financial section of the report follows with our auditor's opinion, which was modified as a complete set of financial statements was not presented. The statement of revenues and expenditures is on page 7, followed by the notes to the financial statement. We also included a one-page letter with the report. This is a required communication to governance to inform you that a material adjustment to the accounting records was proposed and recorded as a result of our audit. That concludes my presentation. I'd like to thank Commissioner Caswell and his staff for their cooperation and assistance during the audit. Thank you.
Commissioner Caswell, do you have anything you would like to say?
Thank you. So Commissioner Taylor Caswell, BA, and with me is Rhonda Hensley, who is our business office manager in her second week on the job. So I would just want to, first of all, thank the LBA for the period of time that they have spent with us. As Christine noted, we are a new agency in the world of state government, and we have had a series of individuals coming and going through our administrative office, and so we're sort of continuing to build a system to move forward. I would say that the experience that we had with the LBA was exceptionally helpful in terms of finding where we need to improve. And we're certainly already in many of these items I think we've already started or have addressed. it's unfortunate that when you, and I know the Department of Energy has been through a similar situation where legislative becomes and it becomes effective on July 1st of the new fiscal year to start a new department. And a lot of those pieces are not fully in place at that exact moment in time. And we don't really have a guidebook, how to start a new state agency. And so we managed to, those first couple of months, really sort of get these pieces put together and build an administrative system to support the policy initiatives of the department. So overall, I would say thank you. I think we were pleased with the outcome of a lot of these observations. And as I said, we're already working to implement changes as we move forward.
Okay, are there questions? Yes, Senator Gray. Sorry. No. Senator Khan.
will ask a question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, no problem.
I do want to say something about the graduate retention incentive program. It passed probably 4 years ago, and it had the endorsement of the Business Industry Association of the state. It's a grow your own program, essentially, to try to retain New Hampshire graduates from New Hampshire colleges and universities in the state for future workforce employment needs. And it costs the state very little in that it's an employer-driven incentive with the administration through the department. I say that only as a refresher to that I think the lack of application is because it was never promoted as an active program. So I'd encourage, and I'd be glad to continue to work with the department to reignite the partnership that was established around the passage of that legislation.
Certainly, Senator. And I would say, we worked together to get that legislation passed in the first place. And we did do some initial promotional activity. My recollection is that we all got COVID sort of got in the way in the implementation of the promotional activities. And at that point in time, it was, I think, pretty difficult to make it a huge priority, given the response that our department was involved with COVID during those early months of 2020 and into 2021. I think it is a good program. We have worked with the BIA, and the BIA has new leadership in place. The program basically allows for businesses to provide a bonus to individuals who graduated from New Hampshire colleges, and to have those businesses that agree to do that be promoted by the department on our website and in interactions with our staff. So it's not necessarily a huge lift to get that set up. I think the challenge continues to be getting the businesses to do that, and we'll be working to sort of continue to move that program.
Great. Thanks for the response.
Thank you. Are there any further comments, questions? Thank you very much. Excellent job. And we'll move forward. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We now turn to the audit on the Board of Dental Examiners, Office of Professional Licensure and Certification.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This next report is a performance audit report on the Board of Dental Examiners, in addition to a significant dive into the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification. The in charge on this audit, it was Steve Grady, Senior Manager from our office. And joining us from the board is Dr. Kocher, and from OPLC is Executive Director Lindsay Courtney. So I'll turn it over to Steve.
Good morning. For the record, I am Steve Grady, the in-charge auditor for the Dental Board Performance Audit. The audit assessed how efficiently and effectively the board administered the regulation of dentistry and dental hygiene in state fiscal years 2019 and 2020. When they directly affected board operations, we also examined matters outside that period, as well as OPLC and other agencies' management controls. I will be summarizing the report.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am. The executive summary starts on page 1. There, we conclude the board lacked adequate controls to ensure it consistently achieved expected outcomes and that it did so while complying with laws, rules, and other requirements. The board was to protect the public health, safety, and welfare from unqualified, unscrupulous, or impaired dentists and hygienists through 3 primary functions: credentialing, monitoring, and enforcement. However, the board's regulatory program was largely subjective. Credentials that did not meet statutory or other requirements were nonetheless issued. Ongoing credential holder qualification was ineffectively controlled and monitored. Some seemingly significant requirements were actually perfunctory, and enforcement cases were inconsistently managed and resolved. Some matters were dismissed because of insufficient support, not because the board had objectively established noncompliance did not occur. The board lacked controls over its own compliance with requirements. It engaged in extra legal and extra jurisdictional activities, including improperly delegating its discretionary decision-making authority, creating credentials and subordinate entities without statutory authority, engaging in broad ad hoc rulemaking, and failing to implement state policy. Board ineffectiveness was underpinned in part by inconsistent support from other agencies, notably the OPLC. Insufficient OPLC management controls adversely affected board operations in several ways. There was no accountability framework to ensure OPLC provided services that were acceptable and that substandard service delivery was remedied. Records were poorly managed. Controls were poorly understood. Many board actions were unauditable. Consequently, we were compelled to qualify our use of and our conclusions resting on board records and attestations. Our recommendation summary follows on page 5. Of the 36 observations, 33 contained board recommendations. The board concurred with 22 and concurred in part with 11. Board recommendations primarily focus on it ensuring expected outcomes are achieved, rationalizing its regulatory program, actively controlling the 3 primary functions, complying with laws, rules, and other requirements, controlling subordinate entities, and controlling the quality of OPLC services. 10 observations contain OPLC recommendations that focus primarily on establishing an effective control framework, complying with laws, rules, and other requirements, and ensuring quality services are provided to supported agencies. OPLC management concurred with all 10. 20 observations contain either legislative suggestions or elements that may require legislative action depending upon how the responsible agency remediates the identified defects. Legislative suggestions include increasing the number of public board members, further clarifying the OPLC board relationship or compelling them to do so by a date certain, structuring interagency accountability, and determining whether a fundamental change to the state's approach to regulating occupations is warranted. Current board members and OPLC management did not create all of the defective controls we identified. Many defects were longstanding. Nonetheless, current members and management were responsible for efficiency and effectiveness. It will likely take the board several years to address the audit's recommendations and develop and implement an effective regulatory program objectively shown to efficiently achieve expected outcomes. Integration of board and OPLC controls to help remediate some defects and gain positive control over board operations has reportedly begun. However, whether, how, and when the board will remediate other defects is inconsistently clear. The board inconsistently recognized limitations on its authority. It disagreed with the need to follow some fundamental state policy requirements. Consequently, we suggest the General Court consider how expanded oversight could help ensure the board effectively carries out state policy and that it complies with the limitations imposed upon it as it does so. I would like to thank board members, members of subordinate entities, OPLC management and staff, and numerous stakeholders for their assistance during the audit. Unless there are any questions of me, I'll be followed by the board president, Dr. Kocher, and then by Lindsay Courtney, the OPLC's executive director.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Dr. Puneet Kochar, President of the New Hampshire Board of Dental Examiners. And I just want to thank you guys for letting me speak to address the LB audit. The board does take its responsibility to protect the public very seriously. The fact of the matter is that none of the board members are an attorney, so we count on support, legal counsel for any legislative changes that come up. But that being said, the board was working on the current rules in place, the current legislative statutes in place. So the LBA committee's report was an eye opener. So we thought we were working on what we had, but since you've had enough reading material here, I think for a few weeks or months, this is now that we realize, okay, now we know better, so we gotta do better. So like Steve pointed out, the board is already working on figuring out how we're going to incorporate all these recommendations. It will be a several years project, no doubt, and it will require resources from OPLC. It will require legislative changes that the board would reach out to maybe the committee members or other people who can give support for those legislative changes to be made, and then we'll go from there. So I'm not going to address every observation because I don't want you guys to spend all your day here, but if you have questions, I'll be happy to answer.
I would just like to say that don't feel that you were picked on. This is probably one of our first audits in OPLC. Is that correct? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great. We conducted several audits in 2017, which was about 2 years after the OPLC was created in 2015. But since 2017, this is the only performance audit we've conducted of an OPLC assigned agency.
Yeah. So, and we've had a lot of changes at OPLC during that time. And so, there'll be other boards that will be looked at in the future. Okay. So you're just coming up initially.
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to just swap? Thank you, Dr. Kocher. Oh, thank you. Good morning. For the record, Lindsay Courtney. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Professional Licensure and Certification. Just wanted to start out briefly by thanking members of the auditing team for their work in assisting us in identifying a lot of the issues that we've been aware of, or at least I've been aware of since starting at 2019. But articulating it in a fashion that I think will help us move forward. It was a long process, so I really appreciate the work as well as the work of the board in cooperating and collaborating with this process. OPLC completely concurs with all of the findings in the audit, and I think the one thing that I would note is that while this audit is specific to the Board of Dental Examiners, the Board of Dental Examiners is not unique, and the concerns raised in the audit with respect to OPLC support of the Board of Dental Examiners is also applicable to all of the other regulatory boards. The experience at OPLC has been quite interesting for me in the last 2 years, 3 years, almost 3. There are problems that we identify literally every day. So I wanted the committee to be aware of that while we are looking at the audit through the lens of the dental board, you can really apply it to all of the support that OPLC provides to all regulatory boards. I could go on for a long period of time as to what I think the causes of some of these issues are, but I will not do so. But I will say that I think one of the primary issues as to why OPLC has not rectified its primary problem of having a lack of internal controls throughout the agency is that it was not a priority at the agency, at least for the first several years of its inception. I can commit to you and say to you that that is not the case today. We have made establishing internal controls the number one priority at the agency. We have put that as part of our strategic plan, and I had hoped to have copies of our strategic plan for you today, but unfortunately, we had some printer problems. Maybe that's an internal controls issue. I don't know, Mr. Grady, would you tell me? But in any event, I can commit to you that we are committed to resolving the issues identified in the audit so that we can fully support the licensing boards the way we were designed to do so. Our implementation of our strategic plan, which is intended to remediate the audit findings, will likely take several years. Again, as I noted, while these issues are specific to the dental board, they apply to all boards. Some of the initiatives that we're currently undertaking right now is just conducting an inventory of all of our statutory and regulatory requirements. I'm sure it does not surprise most of you that if you put all of our statutes, our practice acts in one Word document, it's well over 2,000 pages. That's a lot for one agency to inventory in addition to all of the regulatory requirements. That's just one aspect of one of the things that we were doing. I could go on for days about the other things that we're doing, but I won't. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I'm also happy to circulate our strategic plan to the committee after this meeting.
Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Susie.
Thank you. I just wonder if you or the doctor could just identify what are the 2 or 3 key findings that might be acted upon most quickly, or that were most troubling and need to be acted upon most quickly?
So I think the answer to that question is going to be different for OPLC versus the board. I can say for the agency, the biggest challenge at the agency, and I don't know, maybe Dr. Kochar will agree, is the lack of clarification between board authority and responsibility versus OPLC authority and responsibility. When OPLC was created, much like Commissioner Caswell mentioned, it was created overnight, and I actually think the budget was retroactive that year, so it was in effect without actually being in effect. The culture surrounding occupational licensing was not really supportive of the agency's creation. And that's something that has really impacted its ability to effectively implement its statutory requirements. It's not just a legal change, it's a cultural change that takes a long time. That coupled with the fact that there was probably some lack of management going on, maybe some decisions not made that, to the best decisions that could have been made, I think has contributed to this issue. But there certainly is a lack of clarity in the legislation, which is why OPLC partnered with, I believe it was Senator Carson last year. We sought a statutory change to create a study committee to study the issue. That passed, so thank you. Senate Bill 330 established a study committee. The committee released its findings, I believe 2 weeks ago, stating definitively that yes, there needs to be clarification and providing a roadmap as to how we're going to do that. So I do believe that's something the legislature or those committee members are interested in pursuing this legislative session. It'll probably be the fastest solution to one of the larger challenges we have.
Thank you.
Would you like to?
So I guess we identify the issues differently.
Mhm.
One would be the functioning, like Lindsay pointed out, okay, that's the internal functioning. One would be on the board's performance, where the board can adequately deliver the job it's been tasked to, is support. In the past, DOJ was not able to provide the board support, so that was an issue. OPLC had a tremendous amount of staff turnover. It was like we didn't know who was coming and who was going. So that was an issue that has settled down. Because the enforcement division has been created by OPLC, we are not relying on DOJ anymore, so that's a better thing. The board did not have an investigator for quite a while. Finally, when we had an investigator, the agency prior to OPLC had not floated an RFA, so that was debunked. We could not use that investigator anymore. We had to start over again. So that was the board's, I would say, the investigation side, the complaint side. Now, from a licensee's perspective or the public protection perspective, the biggest issue we're facing right now is sedation. That's the biggest issue because that was one of the findings that came out from the report, and that was the first thing that the board acted on. So again, an RFA was floated. We've identified the people, but again, they are still not ready in the pipeline to go out and do the investigations. The board is trying to create a committee which we would seek again legal support, legislative support for it, because the LB audit prefers everything be done legislatively, which is going to take us even longer. So we want that, okay, if somebody's going to go out and do a sedation evaluation or a sedation exam, who is making up that exam? What is that person being tested for? It should be uniform everywhere. It should not be left to the examiner. So the board is working on securing that and figuring that out. So that is the perspective the board has from a licensee and a public standpoint. So those are things we're working on. So I think we're waiting for the sedation people to be in the pipeline so they can go out and at least do that. So those are the biggest requirements right now.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Representative Leachman.
I do appreciate, thank you, Madam Chair. I do appreciate the doctors will do better comment, but several hundred pages into the document, and the LBA folks, you do an awesome job. But there was a note about criminal background checks. To me, that seems kind of should be up there, that it hasn't been conducted on hundreds of applicants. Is that something that you're going to focus on?
So the criminal background checks have been started. When it was passed, the board actually had asked OPLC to help support legislation to get criminal background checks, because when the board was doing their rules check, we would say, if I as a parent has to escort my child for any field trip, I need a criminal background check. How can we have a provider in the state who doesn't get a criminal background check? That was passed, but every time the board reached out to OPLC to see whether that had been set in place, we were told that the ball is rolling, the resources are not in there yet, they are still working on it, they have to work with the state. So nothing happened. And then COVID hit, so everything was on pause. But now it's in place. It's the people who are now applying for licensure are going through criminal background checks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions? Yes.
Yeah, speaking to all the RSAs that apply to OPLC, there's an opportunity, because if I'm continuing in Division 1, which I have in the past, and we've met, you have an opportunity in the budgeting process to suspend RSAs in HB2. So if you've got a burdensome level that you can't comply with all of them, rather than getting an audit to saying you're not complying, you can request that these be suspended for 2 years as part of the budgeting process, just to take some of the heat off.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think one of the challenges, and that may prove to be useful. One of the challenges is that our board practice acts, with the exception of criteria specific to a particular licensure, they all kind of say the same thing, but in different ways. So you could suspend it, but you need to make sure that we have the authority elsewhere. It's kind of like building a plane while trying to fly it. It would have been nice, if there was clear statutory authority in one statute, and then that all of the practice acts refer to that statute. Instead, discipline is set forth in each practice act in a slightly different way, and we're required to implement it in a slightly different way for all boards, which is anything but efficient. So those are some of the issues that were identified with the committee on established by 330, and we are going to be collaborating, working on pursuing legislative changes on that. But thank you. That is something I wasn't aware of, so I will certainly keep that in mind, Representative.
Are there any further comments? Seeing none, It's 11:45. Amazing. We're getting out of here so early. But that's because I asked Mr. Commissioner Caswell will be filling up some time on the 2nd. So, anyhow, is there any further business I need to worry about? All right, then the meeting is adjourned. We did really well today, Virginia. Getting out of here at 11:45.
I've been out before this.
Really?
At one point, we were only here for 45